Welcome to Daily Newsings. Daily Newsings are musings on the daily news. Today's newsing is on the India-US Bilateral Trade Agreement that is currently being discussed and negotiated by the two countries. In fact, the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, is coming to India with his wife and will be meeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi as part of the trade negotiations. The context to all of this is the reciprocal tariff that was announced by the President of the US, Donald Trump, and the 90-day subsequent pause of the tariffs. What's a tariff and why do countries have them? A tariff is a tax that the government levies on goods that are imported or exported across countries. For example, if the US levies an import tariff on Indian goods of 17%, Indian goods that are sold in the US will have to pay a tax of 17% of the cost of the product to the US government. The businesses paying this tax will want to recover this cost from the customer, so the price of the goods will increase. The advantage the US would get from such an import tariff is of two kinds. One, the tax that the government directly gets from the business. Two, this tax is only applied on Indian goods and not on American products. So the cost of Indian goods increases while that of the American ones don't. This incentivizes the American public to buy more of the American goods. This brings more profits to the American businesses, which would create more jobs as the business hires more people and grows or increases the wages of its employees. Thus, it can bring prosperity to the country. The reason the US imposed reciprocal tariffs on India is because till now India had imposed import tariffs on US goods. In fact, India has one of the highest tariffs among major world economies. It has an average tariff of 17%, while the US only has an average tariff of 3.3%. We talk about averages because different goods have different tariff rates. In agriculture, for instance, India's average tariff is as high as 39%. The reason India has such high tariffs on agricultural products is to protect small-scale Indian farmers. Agriculture in developed nations is often highly mechanized and carried out in large-scale farms with less human workers involved. This enables farmers in developed countries to spend less to grow their crops. Consequently, they can sell at much cheaper rates. Indian farmers, on the other hand, often rely on a number of human laborers, and the need to pay all of them, combined with the fact that the land holdings are much smaller, means that Indian farmers spend a lot more to grow their crops. Consequently, they can only sell it at high costs. Without tariffs that India imposes on agricultural products from other countries, Indian crops wouldn't sell much and Indian farmers would suffer financially. What are the points raised by the US and India? The US feels that the current scenario where India levies an average tariff of 17% and the US has an average tariff of 3.3% is unfair. The US wants India to lower its tariffs so that there may be some form of equality. India, on the other hand, claims that trade agreements need to be constructed on the principle of equity rather than only equality. The fact that India is a developing country and the US is already a developed economy needs to be taken into account. India further claims that the development of India, which the tariffs might help India to do, would in the long run help American businesses since those businesses can sell to India's 1.4 billion people only if these people have the economic power to buy American goods. A deeper issue behind the tariff story is India's inequality. The story has revealed how India is a major world economy. India's gross domestic product in 2023, for example, was 3.56 trillion US dollars. India is among the top 5 economies of the world, and yet not everyone has enjoyed the benefits of the development of the country. The fact that India needs to levy high tariffs on agricultural products shows that most farmers in India are barely making ends meet. In fact, most of them are not making ends meet. While around 42% of India's workforce is engaged in agriculture, agriculture only makes up around 18% of India's GDP. To put it in simpler terms, 42% of India's working population together earn around 18% of India's income. On the other hand, services industry contributes more than 50% of India's GDP, while less than 30% of the workforce work in the services industry. The only long-term solution for India's farmer distress is for most young people engaged in farming to get other employment opportunities so that fewer farmers cultivate larger holdings of land. For all the chest thumping and boasting of India's image on the international stage improving, The reality is that we have some of the highest tariffs on the global stage because we are not all that developed as a nation. A large section of our population has been ignored in the development story. How do we as Christians think about these issues? I have often said here on this blog that faithful stewardship and governance of a country is a highly complex issue. Competing demands need to be balanced. The welfare of the poor and marginalized needs to be considered, while at the same time not handicapping businesses because it is businesses that create jobs. Faithfulness for Indian Christians ought to involve regular praying for our leaders. See 1 Timothy 2 1-2. In this specific instance, we pray that the trade agreement reaches a satisfactory conclusion and that it protects the interests of all parties involved. Churches can also bless the country by praying for and teaching a holistic doctrine of vocation. Serving through a wide range of vocations blesses the country. Churches can encourage their members to pursue serving the country in various vocations: public policy making and policy research, Indian administrative services, the judiciary, economists, academic researchers in a wide range of subjects: economics, law, public policy, agricultural sciences, international relations, etc., politics, law enforcement. These are all vocations where faithful and diligent men and women can bless the country in various ways. In addition, we need entrepreneurs who start businesses and create jobs. We need innovators and engineers who might bring down the cost of creating things through new ideas and technologies. We need educators who upskill the people of the land and healthcare professionals who keep them in good health. Christians are not motivated to pursue these vocations in order to get a high income, higher standard of living, or a comfortable, safe life. They ought to pursue such vocations in order to serve the country. They follow a master who came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. Thank you for listening to Daily Newsings.